The rain came down in furious sheets, turning the city into a blur of headlights and panic. Grace Turner yanked a tarp over her food cart, fingers trembling as wind threatened to flip the metal roof. The tarp snapped free, slicing her palm open. She winced but didn't stop, not with her last few trays of empanadas still exposed. This storm could ruin her whole week's earnings, and rent was due in 2 days. Across the street, a black luxury SUV screeched to a halt, tires hydroplaning for a second. Grace barely noticed. Her world shrank to a dozen aluminum trays, a cardboard box of napkins, and a sloshing cash tin. Just as she bent to retrieve a container, a horn blasted, deafening. She jerked her head up, eyes wide, and was met with glaring headlights. The SUV skidded toward her. It stopped just inches from her knees. The driver's door flung open, and a man stepped into the storm, cursing as water splashed against his Italian shoes. Tall, furious, and soaked in confidence, he pointed at her. "Are you insane? You were in the middle of the street." She blinked through rain, hair plastered to her face. "You almost killed me," she muttered, "and your car's in the market lane." His jaw tightened. Unbelievable. Logan Westbrook didn't know why he got out of the car. Maybe it was guilt or curiosity. He'd been trying to track supply chain issues in this neighborhood, a PR stunt disguised as a research trip. But now, dripping wet, staring at a woman balancing trays of food like they were relics, he realized she was barely older than his assistant, except she had calluses, hunger in her eyes, and no patience for nonsense. "You okay?" he asked, softer now. Grace squinted at him. "Depends. You gonna buy something or just yell?" Logan exhaled, his breath visible in the cold air. "I'll take whatever you've got left." She narrowed her eyes. "That'll be $12. He pulled out a money clip and handed her 100. She blinked. "Seriously?" "Keep the change," he muttered, walking back to the SUV. Grace watched him go, heartbeat still spiking. Who the hell just dropped $100 like that? And why did his face look like it belonged on the cover of Forbes? She shook her head and returned to salvaging her inventory. The rain was relentless, but something strange had sparked between them. Brief, electric, unexplained. The next day, Grace rolled her cart into the marketplace as usual, sore, sleep-deprived, but standing. Her regulars showed up like clockwork. Then, at noon, a shadow fell across her cart. She looked up and almost dropped a tray. There he was again, Logan Westbrook, billionaire CEO, dressed this time in jeans and a hoodie, still out of place, still magnetic. "You again," she said, narrowing her eyes. "You stalking me or just hungry?" He almost smiled. "Both?" She raised an eyebrow, wasn't expecting a sequel. He gestured at the folding chair beside the cart. "Mind if I sit?" "You're blocking paying customers," she replied. "So unless you're buying again—" "I have a proposition," he interrupted. "I want your opinion." She laughed, loud and bitter. "My opinion? On what, caviar and crypto?" "On food," he said simply. "Real food, street food, what people actually eat." Grace stared at him. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." He handed her a business card, and for the first time she saw the name printed in silver, Logan Westbrook, CEO, Harvest Tech Industries. Her breath caught. "I run a food logistics company," he explained. "We're trying to improve urban food distribution. I need someone who understands the ground-level experience, someone who's not afraid to say when something's garbage." Grace shook her head, still clutching the card. "You want a poor girl's palate for your billionaire. No think tank?" "Exactly." She wanted to say no. This smelled like charity, or worse, manipulation. But something in his voice told her it wasn't that. He wasn't offering pity. He was offering respect. And maybe, just maybe, a way out of the endless hustle. "I'll think about it," she said. "That's all I ask," he replied. Later, that night, Grace lay on her mattress, the card beside her. Logan Westbrook, the man with a face like a statue and eyes that asked for more than her food. Why did he care? Why her? She didn't trust him, but she couldn't stop thinking about him either. About the rain, the almost accident, the almost connection. She picked up her phone, typed a message, deleted it, typed again. "I'm in. What's next?" Grace arrived at the Harvest Tech downtown building, gripping her tote bag like a lifeline. The revolving doors gleamed like they'd never touched dirt. Inside, everything smelled like air conditioning and money. She stepped across the marble floors with hesitant steps, feeling every eye glance sideways at her frayed jeans and worn boots. The receptionist barely disguised her suspicion. "Do you have an appointment?" Grace held up the business card. "Logan Westbrook's expecting me." An elevator opened without a sound. As it climbed, her stomach churned. What was she doing here? She was just a girl who fried empanadas on a sidewalk cart, not someone who belonged in glass towers with silent lobbies and people who wore cologne that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The elevator dinged, and she stepped into a hallway of glass. A door opened at the end, and Logan stood there, arms crossed. "You came," he said simply. She shrugged. "Don't make me regret it." He gestured her inside. "I never do charity," he said, leading her to a small side conference room. "This isn't pity, this is strategy." Grace looked around. The space had maps of food deserts, logistics charts, and pins on city grids. "We've been trying to launch a decentralized food support program, affordable high-quality meals in poor zones," he explained. "So you're starting a food truck," she said dryly. He smiled. "A fleet. But we can't design the menu from a boardroom. That's where you come in." Grace tilted her head. "You want me to critique your food?" "Not just critique. I want you to break it. Break it, taste it, trash it. Tell me why it doesn't work. We have prototypes being prepped downstairs. You up for it?" She crossed her arms. "You sure your chefs can handle a poor girl's opinion? If they can't, they're fired." That made her pause. She didn't know if he was joking. That unnerved her. She followed him downstairs to the test kitchen, where a team of suited chefs hovered over sleek stainless steel counters. The moment she walked in, every eye fell on her. One of them whispered too loudly, "That's her?" Grace pretended not to hear. She was good at that. Logan motioned to a plate. "Start with this. Chicken tinga wrap designed for fast mass prep." Grace picked up the wrap, sniffed it, then took a bite. She chewed slowly, eyes narrowing. Then she dropped it onto the plate like it offended her. "You used canned tomatoes, cheap vinegar, and the tortillas dry. This tastes like sadness." One of the chefs gasped. Logan looked delighted. "Next," he said, nodding to another dish. This one was a quinoa salad. Grace took a bite and cringed. "This one's for rich folks pretending. To diet, no flavor, just guilt." A few stifled laughs broke around the room. Logan leaned closer. "You're doing great." She glanced at him, unsure if he meant it or was testing her. Either way, she continued. She tore through 5 dishes in 20 minutes. By the end, the room was divided. Half the chefs looked furious, the other half intrigued. Logan clapped his hands. "You all heard her. Scrap batch 1. We're building from the ground up." Grace blinked. "Wait, seriously?" "You just saved me 3 months of blind testing," he replied. "Congratulations." Afterwards, he walked her to the lobby. "I want you on contract," he said. "Part-time, flexible hours, your role, taste consultant and cultural strategist." Grace stopped mid-step. "Cultural what?" "You understand flavors real people live with. That's rare. So I'm a walking reality check?" "Exactly." She laughed, not sure if she was flattered or insulted. "What does it pay?" He named a number. Her heart stuttered. She tried to keep her face still, but he noticed. "That's too much." "It's exactly right," he said. "I don't underpay value." She hesitated. This felt too good, too fast. But also, when did someone last look at her and see anything more than barely surviving? She nodded once. Okay. Outside, the sky was clear. The same streets waited for her, but they didn't feel the same. Grace had walked into the building a vendor. She left with something more than money, a crack in the walls she'd built to survive. And behind those walls, something unfamiliar stirred. Hope. Grace's first week in her new role passed in a blur of tasting sessions, meetings filled with acronyms she didn't understand, and awkward stares from people in tailored clothes. She didn't care much about impressing anyone, but there were moments, like when someone referred to her as the taste consultant from the streets, that made her skin crawl. Logan didn't flinch at the remark. He just looked at the speaker until they fell silent. Every afternoon, Logan would ask for her input, not just on food, but on marketing ideas, pricing, even packaging. Grace found herself analyzing textures and flavors like puzzle pieces. It surprised her how natural it felt, but the more she was pulled into Logan's world, the more disconnected she felt from her own. Her cart, parked and abandoned, gathered dust. Her regulars called, wondering where she'd gone. On Friday, she skipped the office and returned to the market. It wasn't out of guilt, not entirely. But she needed air. Needed to see if her old world still remembered her. A few people greeted her with hugs, some with mild suspicion. Her friend Camilla, who ran a fruit stall nearby, eyed her outfit. "You wearing real leather now?" Grace snorted. "Borrowed." But she knew she wasn't the same anymore. Later that evening, Grace sat on the fire escape outside her apartment, staring at the skyline. Her phone buzzed. A message from Logan. "New prototype Monday. Need your firepower. Don't hold back." She smiled despite herself. It wasn't flirtation. He was all business always. But there was something in his tone, like he trusted her voice more than anyone's. Monday came with a twist. When she arrived, a woman stood beside Logan in the test kitchen, elegant, poised, and clearly not used to hearing no. "Grace," Logan said, "this is Helena Beck. She's head of investor relations. She's here to observe." Helena offered a thin smile. "We've heard a lot about you." Grace nodded stiffly. "Hope it wasn't all bad." "Depends on the board meeting," Helena replied. As Grace began tasting the new line, upgraded sauces, improved protein blends, she could feel Helena's eyes on her, cold and calculating. Every critique Grace made was followed by a slight arch of the investor's brow, as if noting every rebellious syllable. Logan didn't intervene. He just watched, arms folded, unreadable. After the session, Helena pulled Logan aside. Grace wasn't supposed to hear, but she did. "She's sharp, yes," Helena said, "but she doesn't belong in this role. It's not scalable." Logan replied with steel in his voice. "She's not a model. She's a compass, and I trust her more than anyone else in this room." Grace froze outside the door, breath caught in her throat. That night she walked home in silence. Logan had defended her, openly. But why did that feel even more dangerous than Helena's criticism? There was a storm building, subtle, quiet, but real, and she was standing in the middle of it with no umbrella. Tuesday brought tension. Logan was distracted, taking calls, pacing with frustration. Grace caught snippets. "We need a proof of concept, and they want me to replace the whole team." She tried not to take it personally. But when Logan cancelled their tasting session, citing a last-minute investor dinner, something inside her twisted. By Thursday, she didn't show up. Instead, she spent the day at a community kitchen downtown, helping prepare free meals. It was messy, imperfect, and real. People didn't care what school she went to. They cared about hot food and dignity. She needed that, needed to remember why she ever cared about food to begin with. Her phone buzzed late that night. "Logan," one message. "You okay?" She didn't answer. Friday morning, he was waiting outside her apartment. She opened the door, surprised. He looked tired. "You disappeared." She crossed her arms. "So, did you?" He exhaled. "I messed up. I let the pressure get in the way. You deserve better than that." She studied him, unsure. "Why do you care so much, Logan? About what I think? About me?" He didn't blink. "Because you're the only one who tells me the truth." Grace looked away. That answer scared her more than any lie. Grace didn't reply right away. Logan's words echoed in her chest like a dropped wrench in a quiet garage. "You're the only one who tells me the truth." It wasn't the kind of thing you say to someone you keep at a distance. It was intimate, raw, dangerous. She stepped back and let him into her apartment. He glanced around. Modest furniture, dim lighting, the scent of cumin and fried dough still in the air. "You really live like this?" he asked, not mocking, just curious. She rolled her eyes. "No, Logan, this is my Airbnb penthouse. The street view is just for aesthetic." He didn't laugh. He sat on her worn couch, elbows on his knees. "I haven't slept in 2 nights. She leaned against the counter. "Why?" "Guilty conscience. Worried you'd disappear for good." That shook her more than she wanted to admit. He explained the investor backlash, how Helena had escalated concerns, how board members didn't trust Grace's influence over the menu design. "They say I'm blinded by proximity," he muttered. "Proximity," Grace repeated. "You mean by me being close? They think I'm making decisions with my heart instead of my head." Grace folded her arms. "Are you?" He looked up at her, jaw tight. "I don't know anymore." The silence was too much. She moved to open a window, but her hands trembled. "You need to decide," she said quietly. "Either I'm part of this because I'm good at what I do, or I'm just your distraction." "You're not a distraction," he snapped. "You're the only part that feels real." Grace turned sharply. "Then act like it. Back me publicly. Fight for this team like you fought for that lab." That night ended with no resolution, only tension thick in the air. But something shifted between them. Unspoken. Fragile. Monday, Logan called a meeting. The test kitchen was full. Chefs, analysts, PR heads, and Helena. Grace stood at the back, arms crossed, uncertain why she was even invited. Logan stood before them like a general before a mutiny. "We're not redoing the team. We're not softening the menu to please shareholders. We're keeping what works, and that includes Grace." The room was stunned. Helena's face darkened. Grace swallowed hard. Then he added, "To prove our model, we'll launch a live trial. 1 week. Real food, real locations. If the data supports it, we move forward. If not, we shut it all down." Gasps followed. It was a bold ultimatum, and dangerous. Grace stepped forward. "That's not fair to the chefs. You're putting your whole vision on a 7-day coin toss." Logan looked at her. "You said you wanted me to decide. I just did." And just like that, they were in it together. The next day, they launched the burn test. 5 pop-up kitchens across low-income zones. Grace was on site every day, tasting, adjusting, listening. They fed hundreds, and people came back. Some cried, some offered to help. Every flavor she approved became a spark in someone else's day. On day 5, a child approached her with an empty plate. "You made this?" Grace nodded. The boy smiled. "It made my mom stop crying." She had to step into the alley to breathe. Back at headquarters, data rolled in. Customer satisfaction, sky high. Cost efficiency, viable PR buzz, exploding. Logan walked into the test kitchen on day 7 with his phone in hand. "You did it," he said. "They're backing off." Grace blinked. "Seriously? Seriously? You burned the rulebook and wrote a new one?" Everyone clapped. But Logan didn't look at the team. He looked only at her. That night he drove her home. They sat in the car for a long moment, engine off, the city humming around them. Grace turned to him. "You know what scares me?" "What?" "That I'm starting to want more than just a job out of this." He was quiet. Then, softly, "Me, too." He didn't kiss her, but he didn't have to. The silence between them said enough. The invitation arrived in a cream envelope, thick as cardstock and laced with gold leaf. Grace held it like it might bite her. It was for the annual Westbrook Foundation Gala, the most exclusive event Logan's family hosted every year. Black tie, press heavy, the kind of room that devoured outsiders. Grace had never been to anything that required more than eyeliner and clean shoes. "You expect me to wear a dress and pretend I belong?" she asked Logan the night before the event. They were walking along a quiet street, eating tacos from a cart, their bodies close but not touching. "You already belong," he said. "That's not what your friends think. They're not my friends, they're my investors." Same thing. The next evening, Grace stood in front of her mirror, wearing a deep emerald gown loaned by a stylist Logan insisted on. Her curls had been tamed into soft waves, and a diamond bracelet winked on her wrist, one she'd almost refused until the stylist said, "It's from the Westbrook Vault. You're representing the brand." Her throat tightened. The brand, not the girl. The gala was held in a towering museum-turned-event hall. Chandeliers sparkled like stars trapped indoors. Grace entered on Logan's arm, conscious of every flash from the press line. People turned, whispered, smiled with teeth that hid questions. She could feel the headlines writing themselves. Street vendor turned consultant, Logan Westbrook's latest cause, or something more. Inside, it was worse. Crystal glasses, conversations about hedge funds and art acquisitions. She gripped, her clutch like it was armor. Logan was by her side, introducing her to people with two smooth names and two firm handshakes. "This is Grace Turner, the voice behind our latest culinary strategy," he'd say. Some nodded politely. Others raised eyebrows. Then came a voice that twisted her stomach. "Grace, isn't it?" Helena, wearing silk red and an expression like perfume gone sour. "Didn't expect to see you here." Grace gave a tight smile. "I get that a lot." "Quite the transformation. You clean up well." "So do wounds," Grace replied, before turning away. Logan chuckled under his breath. "You're going to get me exiled." "You brought me," she reminded him. "You made the rules." But the tension lingered. Grace wandered to the balcony for air, gripping the rail as if the city might offer comfort. She didn't hear him approach. "You okay?" Logan asked. "Define okay." He stood beside her. "You don't have to impress them." "I'm not trying to. I'm trying not to drown." Logan leaned closer. "I didn't bring you here to show you off. I brought you because I don't want to be here alone." That admission, soft, cracked, undid something in her. "Do you ever wish you weren't born into all this?" she asked. "All the time," he said. "But it's not about where we start. It's about what we make with what we've got." She met his eyes. "And what are we making, Logan?" For a moment he didn't answer. Then quietly, "Something I've never had before." Later, during the donor presentation, Logan took the stage to introduce the food initiative. Instead of the usual script, he spoke off the cuff. "What we're building isn't just a logistics solution. It's a bridge between waste and hunger, between power and the people who deserve more. And the one who saw that first is Grace Turner." A spotlight found her. She froze, exposed. People clapped, but it felt like thunder. Backstage, she found him loosening his tie, smiling. "You're insane," she said. "Maybe," he said, "but I'm not hiding anymore. From them, from myself." That night, he kissed her for the first time. It wasn't soft. It wasn't practiced. It was messy, raw, like everything they were afraid to want but couldn't deny anymore. When it ended, she whispered against his lips, "What now?" Logan's answer was barely audible. "Now we see who tries to tear it down." By morning, Grace's name was on every blog, every gossip column, and every whisper in high-rise offices. From street food to silver spoons, Logan Westbrook's new flame. Gala stunner, unknown woman at the center of Harvest Tech's culinary revolution. The headlines varied in tone, but the implication was the same. She didn't earn her place. She was sleeping her way into influence. She threw her phone across her tiny apartment, the screen cracking against the wall. Logan's messages buzzed, unanswered. She didn't want his apologies. She wanted a moment to breathe, to remember who she was before the world labeled her a gold digger or a PR pawn. She paced the floor, trying to outrun the shame creeping up her spine. Outside, the world kept spinning. Reporters camped near her building. Neighbors whispered. Camilla stopped by, groceries in hand, and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Let them talk," she said. "You know who you are." Grace nodded, but the truth was, she wasn't sure anymore. She hadn't touched her food cart in weeks, hadn't made anything with her hands except critiques and signatures. When she finally walked into the office that week, all conversations stopped. Heads turned. Helena was waiting near the elevator, arms folded like a cobra ready to strike. "Rough news cycle," she said too brightly. Grace looked her dead in the eye. "Jealousy's a rougher one." "Don't flatter yourself," Helena snapped, then added lower, "You're not built for this world, Grace, and the sooner you realize that, the less it'll hurt." In the conference room, Logan stood at the head of the table. His tie was loose, his jaw tight. "Damage control," he began. "That's what they're calling it. But I call it fear. Fear of what happens when someone breaks the mold and still wins." His eyes found Grace. "They're not mad because you don't belong. They're mad because you do, and you didn't need their permission." Some clapped. Most didn't. After the meeting, Grace cornered him. "This is spiraling. I know. You should have warned me. I thought I could shield you." "You can't," she said. "Not from this. Not from them." He nodded slowly. "Then let's stop playing defense." "What does that mean?" "We go public, full story, full partnership. If they want to come for us, let them come knowing we're not ashamed." Grace hesitated. "That's a war." "Then let's fight it." The next day they launched a campaign. Real food, real faces. It featured stories of those helped by the initiative, no polished models, just Grace, the street cooks, and community leaders. And slowly the narrative shifted, not erased, but challenged. New headlines emerged, disrupting hunger. How a street vendor is shaping big tech cuisine, but with visibility came danger. That Friday, Grace received an envelope. No return address. Inside was a photo of her and Logan kissing outside the gala. Scribbled in marker across the bottom, "You won't last." Her hands trembled. She took the picture straight to Logan's office. "This is a threat." He stared at the image, then at her. "They're trying to scare us into quitting." "It's working." He stood and gently cupped her face. "I won't let them tear you down. You can't promise that." "I can promise to stand with you when they try." That night she stayed at his place. Neither of them slept. Sometime near dawn, she whispered, "What if they're right? What if I'm just the flavor of the month?" Logan turned to her, his voice rough from exhaustion. "Then it's the first flavor that's ever meant something to me." She didn't cry, but for the first time she wanted to. The morning after the anonymous threat, Grace stared at her reflection in Logan's penthouse mirror, trying to recognize the girl in silk pajamas and fear-lined eyes. She wasn't used to this world. Not just the wealth, but the exposure. Her scars were private ones, built from disappointment and empty refrigerators, not magazine stories and political chess. Logan came up behind her, shirt half-buttoned, coffee in hand. "They can't touch you," he said softly. "They already did," she whispered. "They got inside." He reached out, but she pulled away. "I need space, Logan." "Grace, just space, not forever, just enough to remember who I am when no one's watching." She left his apartment that afternoon and went straight to the edge of the city, a neighborhood where the initiative had been quietly in piloting a community kitchen. There, she found hands covered in flour, kids laughing, and a cook named Esteban who didn't know or care about viral tweets. It was what she needed. Something real, something warm. She threw herself into the work. For 2 days, she chopped, stirred, cleaned, and listened. She didn't answer her phone, didn't check her inbox. She let the rhythm of real life scrape off the noise of boardrooms and threats. But silence has its cost. On the 3rd day, Camilla rushed in, holding her phone. "You need to see this," she said, breathless. Logan was on the news. A journalist had broken a story, linking Logan's company to a controversial investor, someone known for exploiting land in developing countries. The piece implied hypocrisy. Grace's face flashed in B-roll. The headlines twisted her name into association. "Westbrook's girl, face of a fraud." She froze, then dialed his number. He picked up on the 2nd ring. "Grace, tell me it's not true. It's not what they say it is. Then what is it?" A pause. "I didn't know, I swear. The deal was old. I missed it in the portfolio review." "That's not good enough, Logan. I'm fixing it." "Can you?" Silence. Later that night, he showed up at the community kitchen. Dirty sneakers, circles under his eyes. "I pulled out of the contract," he said. "Publicly, I might lose half the board, but I'd rather lose them than lose this." She stared at him. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I was scared you'd walk away. You don't get to make that choice for me," he nodded. "Then don't let the world make it for you either." She didn't say anything, just turned back to the stove. He stood beside her, chopped onions, in silence. The next day, Grace was invited to speak at a community summit. She almost declined. But something had changed. She wasn't just reacting anymore. She was deciding. She stood before the crowd, mostly local leaders and kitchen volunteers, and told her story, the real one. The food cart, the fear, the unexpected doors, and the cost of walking through them. "I didn't ask for this spotlight," she said, "but now that I have it, I'm not going to let others rewrite the story." Applause rose slowly, then louder. Logan watched from the back, eyes unreadable. Afterward, she joined him outside. The air was crisp, clean. "You know what I realized up there?" she said. "What?" "That they don't scare me anymore because I'm not alone." He looked at her. "You never were." She didn't take his hand. She didn't need to. She was already beside him. The knock on Logan's office door came mid-morning. He didn't look up, still reviewing documents on legal fallout from the pulled investor deal. "Come in," he called, not expecting anyone significant. But when the door opened and he saw her, his entire posture shifted. Charlotte Vale. Perfect. Hair, impeccable smile, and eyes that saw through weakness like a surgeon sees soft tissue. "Hello, Logan," she said, like no time had passed. "Charlotte," he replied slowly, "you're not dead after all." "Not yet." She stepped inside, setting her designer bag down like it owned the table. "Saw the news. Quite the mess. You've made a habit of setting things on fire. Some fires are necessary, and some just burn everything." Charlotte wasn't just an ex. She was once his closest business partner, and the woman his family always wanted him to marry. She left 3 years ago after a falling out over direction and ethics. But now she was back, and worse, she was here with a proposition. "I want in," she said, crossing her legs elegantly. "On what?" "Your food initiative. It's PR gold, a phoenix rising, and you need someone who knows how to charm. Donors, Logan? I already have someone, he replied. Yes, Grace. She said the name like it tasted cheap. Tell me, what's her endgame? Don't. I'm just saying, you're playing with sentiment. That's not like you. He stood. You're right. It's not like the version you remember, but I don't miss him. She studied him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. We'll see. News of Charlotte's return spread fast. And she didn't keep it quiet. Within days, she was quoted in trade blogs as a long-time ally of Westbrook values. Investors took interest. Boards whispered. The media began drawing lines between her and Logan, old connections, past engagements. The narrative practically wrote itself. Grace heard about it first from Camilla, who slid a tablet across the community kitchen counter. She's everywhere, Camilla said, and they're calling her the real architect of the comeback. Grace scrolled in silence. Photos of Charlotte. Beside Logan, at events, at charity drives, the headlines, Power Couple Reignites Westbrook Strategy. She didn't confront him right away. Instead, she waited, watched, measured. When she did walk into his office, she didn't knock. You should have told me, she said. Logan looked up. I didn't want to make it a thing. She's already made it a thing. She's not staying. Doesn't look that way. He stood and walked around the desk. Grace, I need you to hear me. She's not here for me. She's here for the spotlight, but I'm not giving it to her. You already did, Grace said quietly. The moment you let her in again, the moment she started showing up beside you in public, you gave her the script. He stepped closer. Then help me rewrite it. That night, Grace returned to her old rooftop. She sat on the ledge, city lights flickering below. She thought of every time someone said she didn't belong, every time she believed them, and how Logan, for all his flaws, made her believe something different. But now, Charlotte was rewriting history, and history was seductive. The next day, Grace showed up to a planning meeting. Charlotte was there, wearing confidence like a crown. When Logan introduced the new campaign, Grace raised her hand. One change, she said, remove her from the press-facing materials. Charlotte laughed. That's not your call. Actually, Grace replied, it is, because I built the program this campaign is based on, and I'm not sharing it with a ghost from a prettier, colder past. The room went silent. Then Logan said, she's right. Charlotte rose, collected her things, and leaned in close to Grace. You're brave, she said, but brave girls burn out faster than you think. Grace smiled. So do paper queens. That night, Logan showed up at Grace's door. No tie, no apologies, just eyes full of clarity. She's gone, he said. For good this time. Grace let him in, but not all the way. Not yet. Grace and Logan stood in her apartment kitchen, the silence between them more fragile than any plate. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Watching her wash a dish she'd already scrubbed 3 times. You don't trust me, he said finally. She didn't look up. I trust your vision. I don't always trust your heart. His breath caught, but he said nothing. She dried her hands slowly, then turned to him. Do you know what it's like to walk into every room and feel like your presence is a question mark? Like the best version of yourself still isn't enough to silence the doubt? He took a step closer. I never wanted you to feel that way. But I do, because I know I'm one mistake away from becoming your regret. Logan reached for her hand, but she didn't offer it. I'm not afraid of your past, Logan. I'm afraid of how easy it is for me to vanish in your world. You're not invisible, he said, voice firm. Then why do I feel like I have to keep proving I deserve to be here? He looked away. That was an answer in itself. The next week, they worked together on a documentary featurette about the food program. Long days, tight deadlines, shared cars and late-night edits. It should have brought them closer, but instead, every moment buzzed with the unspoken. Grace avoided eye contact. Logan became robotic, polite. The spark that once lit every glance now flickered behind protocol and restraint. One night, after a shoot in the Bronx, their car broke down. They waited on the curb for a tow, wrapped in cold and tension. "This is the first time we've been alone in days," Logan said. "We've been alone plenty," Grace replied. "We just haven't been honest." He turned to her. "Then let me be." He told her about the first time he saw her, not just at the food cart, but how he kept going back, watching from afar, long before their accidental collision. "You looked like you didn't need anyone. But I did. I needed to believe there was someone who still did things for love instead of leverage." Grace blinked. "You make everything sound poetic, because I see you that way." They didn't kiss, but their fingers touched briefly, like a bookmark between chapters neither of them knew how to finish. Days passed. The documentary launched. It exploded, not just because of the food, but because Grace's voice rang with raw conviction. Interviews poured in. She was invited to speak at forums, asked to mentor youth programs, offered consulting gigs. For the first time, she wasn't just beside Logan, she was in her own orbit. And that scared her even more. One night, after a successful panel event, she stood backstage, applause still echoing. Logan waited for her outside, bouquet in hand. She took it, eyes wary. "We should talk," he said. She nodded. "I know." But before either could speak, a phone rang. It was Logan's assistant. "There's been a leak," she said over the line. "Internal documents about the program. They're blaming Grace." Everything froze. Grace's fingers tightened around the bouquet. "What?" "Someone's framing you," Logan said, "and the press already has it." She stared at him, pulse roaring in her ears. "So what happens now?" Logan's eyes were hard. "Now, we find out who your real enemies are." That night, neither of them slept. And in the space between their hands, once full of longing, there was only distance. The news hit like a hammer. Inside a leak, Grace Turner accused of sabotaging Westbrook program. Screens flashed with her face, grainy footage of her at events, headlines twisting facts into fiction. The anonymous documents painted her as a strategic mole planted to expose trade secrets, a narrative fueled by envy, politics, and prejudice. The comments were worse. She played the long game, just another pretty face with dirty hands. Grace sat on her bed, knees pulled to her chest, her phone buzzing beside her like a wasp. Camilla was the first to call. "You need to deny it publicly." "I don't even know what they think I did," Grace muttered. "I didn't leak anything." "That doesn't matter now," Camilla replied. "They're not looking for the truth. They're looking for a spectacle." Logan issued a statement within hours, defending her, but the damage was done. Shareholders called emergency meetings. Partners pulled out. The program once praised was now branded compromised. And Grace, she was suddenly the face of scandal, not the girl who saved recipes, the girl who stole secrets. She walked into the office that week like a ghost. The lobby quieted. People avoided her eyes. Helena was waiting near the elevator. Fake sympathy smeared across her lips. "Rough day," she murmured. Grace stepped closer. "You think this was an accident?" "I think you're learning," Helena said coolly. "Visibility has a price." Grace leaned in. "So does vengeance." Logan met her upstairs, eyes shadowed with fury. "We traced the breach. It came from an encrypted back door. Someone with high clearance." "Someone inside?" she asked. He nodded. "But until we confirm it, we can't say anything publicly." "So I take the fall in the meantime?" "No," he said, stepping closer. "I stand in front of it." He called a press conference, took the stage, and told the world the leak was a deliberate act of sabotage meant to derail a growing initiative. He didn't name names, but he said one thing clearly: Grace Turner is not the source. She's the solution. It helped a little, but the questions kept coming. Rumors didn't die. And Logan, for all his boldness, began to fade from her reach. He was consumed by meetings, damage control, investor fury. Grace felt the walls closing in again, just like they had before she ever met him. Survival mode, isolation, control. That night she returned to the rooftop where it all started. The city lights blinked beneath her like signals from a distant planet. She stared out, thinking not about Logan, but about herself. Who was she now? The street vendor? The consultant? The scandal? The door creaked. Logan stepped out, wind mussing, his shirt. "I figured I'd find you here." "Did you come to fix me?" she asked. "I came to stand next to you." "It's getting harder," she said, "being who they want, even being who I want." "You don't have to be anything," he said. "You already are." She looked at him, then away. "They almost took it all, but they didn't," he said. "You're still here." A long silence passed. Then she whispered, "Why do you stay, Logan?" "Because loving you is the only thing that still feels right." Her breath caught. He moved closer, gently lifting her hand. "You don't have to say it back," he added, "but I need you to know." She held his gaze. Then softly, finally, "I love you too." And in that moment, above the noise, the press, the betrayal, a flame sparked between them that no one else could touch. The next morning brought clarity in the form of chaos. Logan's security team uncovered the source of the leak. AI's forged login traced back to one of Charlotte's former assistants. An encrypted drive held the documents, emails, and payment transfers. Everything pointed to a coordinated smear campaign. And at the center of it was Helena. Grace stood in the war room of Logan's office, watching the evidence pile up like dry kindling. "She always hated me," she said quietly, "but I didn't think she'd go this far." Logan's jaw was tight. "She saw you as a threat, and she knew taking you out would collapse everything I'd built around you." Grace turned. "So now what?" "Now," he said, "we expose her." Within hours, Logan's legal team drafted a release. The story hit the news cycle by noon. Westbrook Corporation uncovers internal sabotage. Grace Turner cleared of all allegations. Helena's name was omitted publicly, but insiders knew. Her resignation followed within 2 hours. Her statement was bland. Her silence was an admission. But Grace didn't celebrate. The damage had already been done. She stood in front of her. Food cart that night parked for the first time in weeks. People came. Some apologized. Some offered praise. But Grace wasn't there to reclaim glory. She was there to remember why she started. A little boy from the neighborhood bit into a tamale and grinned. "This is better than the stuff on TV." She laughed, heart lighter. Later, Logan joined. Her. No cameras, no suits, just the man who nearly lost everything and the woman who already had, more than once. "You could have walked away," he said, "and you didn't." "You could have let them bury me," she replied. "And you didn't." They didn't kiss. They didn't need to, but their hands found each other, and this time they didn't let go. The next week, they were invited to a national conference on food equity. Logan declined the speech slot and gave it to Grace. "It should be your voice," he told her. "You're the story." Grace stood in front of a packed auditorium. Cameras, journalists, and millions watching from their screens. She spoke of hunger, dignity, truth, and resilience. "They tried to define me by where I came from, then by who I was with. But I'm done letting other people hold the pen. This is my story now, and I'm writing it one plate at a time." The standing ovation lasted nearly a minute. Backstage, Logan waited with quiet pride. "You always did belong up there," he said, "even when no one saw it." "I see it now," she said, "not because of them, but because I stopped running from it." Their relationship didn't become easier, just stronger. Fame came. In waves, so did the critics, but neither of them lived for applause anymore. They lived for impact, for purpose, for the people who ate their food and felt seen. One night, while they walked through the city, Logan stopped mid-step. "I bought a space," he said. "For what?" "A permanent kitchen, our kitchen, a place to build something that lasts." Grace smiled. "Then let's build it." The building was tucked into a quiet block on the Lower East Side, a former bookstore, its windows still etched with faded lettering. Grace stood in the middle of the dusty space with Logan beside her, blueprints in hand and hope in his voice. Open kitchen, community table in the center, workshops on weekends. She turned slowly, imagining it all. "We'll need soundproofing if you plan to let me critique the recipes in real time." They laughed, and for a moment, the past few months felt like fog lifting. Logan walked her through the renovation plan, local ingredients, sustainability, job training for underprivileged youth. Grace took notes, ideas spinning. "It can't just be food," she said. "It needs to be philosophy. People come here to be seen, not just fed." They named it Third Place. Not home, not work, something else. A safe, nourishing space. In between, construction started immediately. Grace was there every day, overseeing design, training staff, testing recipes, even laying tile by hand. She wore bruises with pride. The place became an extension of her, imperfect, warm, grounded. Logan, meanwhile, juggled expansion plans, calls from media and family obligations. His father wanted a merger. His board wanted a rebrand. But Logan wanted only this, a building with Grace's fingerprints on every brick. Trouble came quietly. Charlotte reappeared in an article, not as a threat, but a voice of concern. She described Logan as easily influenced by personal attachments. She didn't name Grace, but the intent was clear. The article went viral, investors sent warnings, lawyers whispered liability. The pressure came back, not as a storm, but as an ache. Grace read the piece over breakfast, her fingers tightening on the coffee cup. "She's not done," she said. Logan shook his head. "She's clinging to relevance and dragging you with her. Only if I let her. But she knows your playbook, Logan. Then it's time to write a new one." The week before opening, a pipe burst. The kitchen flooded. 2 major donors pulled out the same day. Then a permit delay pushed their launch another month. Grace sat on a plastic stool in the center of the chaos, hair soaked, hands covered in plaster. "Maybe we bit off more than we can chew," she muttered. Logan handed her a towel. "No, we just haven't swallowed it yet." They didn't sleep that night. Instead, they cleaned, repaired, called everyone they could. At dawn, Camilla arrived with breakfast and reinforcements. By noon, volunteers showed up from every corner of the city. Regulars from Grace's food cart days, families fed by their pilot kitchens, staff who believed in the vision. The space filled with laughter, noise, and the smell of something. Baking. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Opening day arrived with a line around the block. Inside, the kitchen glowed. Logan stood beside Grace in an apron. No suits, no speeches, just food. Real food, cooked with purpose, served with eye contact and care. That night, when the last dish was cleared, Logan pulled her into the back room. "This was never about the press," he said, "or the board. It was about building something with you." She touched his face. "Then let's never forget that." He reached into his pocket, a box, small, velvet. Grace's breath caught. He opened it. No ring, just a note inside. "Let's build more than a kitchen." Tears welled. "Are you—" "I am," he said. "If you are." She didn't answer with words. She kissed him. Grace never believed in fairy tales, happy endings, sure, but only if earned through blood, sweat, and 1,000 meals cooked under flickering light. Yet here she was, engaged to a man who once nearly ran her over, standing in a kitchen she co-designed with a reservation list that stretched months in advance. Third place wasn't just a success. It was a movement. Then the letter came. No postmark, no return address. Just a creamy envelope slipped under their restaurant's door. Inside was a single sheet printed in bold black ink. It only takes one mistake to lose everything. Taped below it, a photo, blurry but unmistakable. Logan standing outside. A bar next to Charlotte. The timestamp read 2 nights ago. Grace stared at it in silence. Her heart didn't race. It dropped. She walked into Logan's office and placed the photo on his desk. "Explain." He glanced at it, then at her, jaw tightening. "She showed up uninvited. I stepped outside to tell her to leave. That's it. Why didn't you tell me? Because it meant nothing. But now it means everything." He stepped forward, reaching for her hand, but she pulled back. "Grace, do you know what it feels like to be constantly defending your right to exist in someone else's story?" she whispered. "You should have told me." He nodded silently. That night, Grace stayed at Camilla's. She didn't cry, but the silence between words felt heavier than betrayal. Camilla made tea, didn't ask questions, just let her sit with the ghosts that never stopped knocking. In the days that followed, Charlotte released a reflective interview online. She didn't mention Logan by name, but referred to past partnerships and how emotions compromise legacy. The implication was clear. Grace was the emotion, the liability, the mistake. The press picked it up. Again. Logan wanted to respond publicly. Grace refused. "I'm done defending us," she said. "If they haven't seen the truth by now, they're not looking." Instead, she poured herself into the restaurant, designed new menus, expanded the apprenticeship program. And for the first time, she spoke less to Logan, not out of spite, but fear. Fear that this foundation, no matter how strong, was still built on wounds they hadn't finished healing. Then one night, the gas line failed during service. A fire broke out in the kitchen. It wasn't catastrophic, but it scorched a wall, ruined equipment, and forced a 3-week shutdown. Investigators called it a freak malfunction. Grace didn't believe in coincidences anymore. The next day, Logan found her in the empty dining room, staring at the charred panel. "I think I need to walk away," she said, "from the restaurant. From this, from us." He didn't speak for a long time. Then, "If that's what you need, I'll let you." "Why aren't you fighting me?" she whispered. "Because I trust you," he said, "and I'm done trying to hold on if it means holding you back." Grace didn't answer. She just left. For days, the world seemed quieter, not calmer, but hollow. The distance between them was palpable even in his silence. Then 2 weeks later, a package arrived at her door. No note, just a USB drive. Inside was a video, security footage, the night of the bar, Logan standing outside, Charlotte arguing. With him, he doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't lean in. He walks away, alone. And with that, the ghosts lost their power. Grace sat on her rooftop, the city spread below like a quilt stitched with memories and mistakes. The flash drive lay beside her, its truth too heavy and too simple. He never betrayed her, not with words, not with silence. He walked away. From temptation, from the past, from Charlotte. And yet, that didn't erase what still lingered between them. Distance, doubt, fear. Love didn't eliminate the scars. It just made them matter more. She visited the restaurant the next morning. It smelled of ash and lemon polish. The fire had left its mark, but so had the people who came to clean, repair, rebuild. The walls bore fingerprints, not flames now. And in the center of it, all stood Logan, hammer in hand, covered in dust, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He didn't see her at first, just kept working, patching the wall he could have paid someone else to fix. She stepped inside. Their eyes met. He dropped the hammer. "I got the video," she said. "I didn't send it to prove anything," he replied. "I just didn't want the truth to get lost in the noise." She took a deep breath. "I was ready to leave, and you let me. Because I believed you'd come back, if not to me, then to yourself." She walked to him, closed. The space between them touched the side of his face. "I don't want to build a kitchen," she whispered. "I want to build a life, with mistakes, with mess, with you." He closed his eyes. Relief washed over his face like rain. "Then marry me, Grace, not for a headline, not for redemption, just for us. No diamonds," she said, "no contracts, no board votes." He smiled. "Just breakfast every Sunday. And maybe tacos on Tuesday." They stood in the middle of their soot-marked dream, surrounded by tools, broken tiles, and enough hope to fill the gaps. That week, they reopened. People flooded in, not just for the food, but for what it meant. A place born of fire and failure, and persistence. Grace gave a short speech that night, standing on a crate behind the counter. "This place isn't perfect," she said. "Neither are we. But it's ours, and it's open to anyone who needs a second chance. Or a first." They served until midnight. After closing, Logan pulled her into the kitchen. No music, no crowd, just two souls covered in flour and sweat, holding hands under a flickering bulb. "I still owe you a ring," he said. "You gave me something better," she replied. "What? A reason to believe again." The first real sign that everything had changed wasn't the success or the expansion or the magazine covers. It was the quiet, the stillness inside Grace. That familiar voice, the one that whispered doubt, asked if she truly belonged, had gone quiet. Not silenced by applause, but soothed by something steadier. Truth. The original restaurant remained their anchor. Smaller than the newer locations, messier too, but undeniably theirs. The wooden counter still bore knife marks. The walls held crooked frames and scribbled menus. And in the back, a bulletin board full of staff recipes and love notes from customers. Grace never let anyone tidy it up. "Let the soul show," she'd say. They didn't marry in white. No grand entrance, no chandeliers. Just a cold Sunday. Morning on their rooftop, Grace in a cotton dress, Logan in rolled sleeves. Camilla officiated. Esteban cried. There were tamales instead of cake, and instead of vows, they read pages from the first notebook they shared. Ideas, fears, and one dream neither had dared to say aloud until now. Peace. Their life together wasn't perfect, but it was. Deliberate. Some days were hard, press still circled, projects failed. Grace had moments where she disappeared into work just to avoid being vulnerable. Logan had days where he forgot to slow down. But they always came back to one thing, the table. Not just the one in their kitchen, but what it represented. Connection. Nourishment, presence. One quiet evening, the restaurant had closed for the night, but Grace and Logan stayed behind. No music, no servers, just the hum of the refrigerator and the city buzzing outside. On the center table sat two steaming bowls of soup. "What's this?" Grace asked, sliding into a chair. Logan joined her. "Dinner," he said. "No press. Release, no gala, just us." She smiled, weary but content. As they ate, Logan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I found this in our first apartment," he said. "You wrote it on the back of a grocery list." She unfolded it slowly. It was faded, ink smudged. "If we ever have enough, let's share it. If we ever have more, let's never forget." What less felt like. Grace stared at it for a long time, then looked at him. "I meant every word," she whispered. He nodded. "Then let's keep the table open." That night, They sat in silence long after the soup had gone cold. Fingers intertwined. No final act. Just the ongoing truth of two people who found each other, not at the top, but in the climb. A table for two, and room for more. Wow, what a story, right? I'd love to hear what you thought. Drop a comment, rate it from 1 to 10, and tell me where you're watching from. And hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out the other stories we have on the channel. There's so much more waiting for you.